Welcome back to Rebels and Revolutions. My name is Yulia, and this is our final episode on the Ichkerian Revolution, also known as the First Chechen War. Please click the links below if you wish to see the first 2 episodes in this series. Today, we will consider the implications of this conflict on both sides, focusing specifically on the roots of the second war between them. I will also focus on the chain of terrorist attacks on Russian civilians conducted by Chechen rebels. Back then, they were attributed to Islamic extremism. I believe the issue is far more complex than that, with the roots of this negative sentiment towards Russia found in the rebels of Grozny and many other Chechen towns destroyed by the Russian army. To be sure, Russia cannot be uniformly blamed for the outcomes of this war, and by 1994, Chechnya did turn into a hotbed for crime of all kind, and did represent a source of unrest for the Federation in general. The problem is that many of the underlying concerns could have and should have been addressed much earlier. Sadly, Yeltsin was too busy proving his own legitimacy as Gorbachev's successor. True, many in Chechnya were engaged in illegal activity, but instead of conducting a legal due diligence process, the Russian government effectively assumed that all Chechens were guilty. In June 1995, hoping to take the pressure off the invasion, a Chechen terrorist cell seized a hospital in the neighboring city of Budyonivsk, taking around 1,500 hostages and demanding a ceasefire. Multiple failed Russian attempts to storm the hospital resulted in 150 hostages being killed, embarrassing the Russian security forces in front of the entire world. Eventually, Russian authorities agreed to a negotiated ceasefire, but not a withdrawal of the Russian troops from Chechnya. This allowed the Chechens to regroup, as their fighters re-infiltrated areas taken by the Russians, with numbers of Chechen fighters boosted by thousands of foreign volunteers. The Chechen insurgency ended the ceasefire in October 1995. Russian forces were now spread thin across the country, where they were vulnerable to hit-and-run raids by Chechen guerrillas. As losses mounted, the Russian media utilized its newfound post-Soviet freedoms to put out grim footage of the conflict, rapidly turning the initially supportive Russian public opinion against the war. In a desperate attempt to regain the upper hand, Russian authorities did something utterly stupid. For some months now, Russia sponsored several attempts to assassinate Dudayev. None of them succeeded. Finally, on April 22nd, Lenin's birthday I might add, the leader of the Chechens uprising was killed by the Russian-guided missile strike, which was linked to Dudayev's cell phone. He was the only leader capable of keeping Chechnya from becoming a failed state and preventing it from turning into a warlord playground that it ultimately became. While Dudayev was in power, Russian authorities still could and should have searched for a negotiated solution to this crisis, but many egos got in the way. After Dudayev, there were simply too many players to negotiate with, thus paving the way for the Second Chechen War. Dudayev's assassination reignited Chechen forces, who, on August 6, 1996, raided Grozny with 1,500 Chechen fighters pitted against 12,000 Russian troops stationed in the city, or what remained of it really. Russian units were forced into isolated groups by the attackers, with Chechen numbers quickly boosted by reinforcements who set up effective defensive positions. Another round of indiscriminatory Russian bombardment sparked such a harsh international condemnation that on August 20th, Russian National Security Advisor General Lebed was sent to end this crisis. As a result, on the 22nd of August, Russian forces were ordered to withdraw from Chechnya, marking a stinging defeat. By August 31st, the Khasavyurt Accord was signed, formalizing the Russian withdrawal and confirming Chechnya de facto independent status. Here, I must remind my viewers that this war was conducted by the Russian state against the citizens of Russia. The idea that Russians were fighting a small group of separatists and terrorists is simply a myth, as several key Russian officials recognized early on that the overwhelming majority of the Chechen population was against them. General Sergei Stepashin, the head of the Russian intelligence agency at the start of the war, was quoted as saying, "To win this war, the whole male Chechen population would have to be eradicated." In 1996, Russian Deputy Defense Minister General Grigory Kondratyev further stated, "It is the entire Chechen population fighting here, not just armed bandits." And I can offer many more official quotes that prove Russia was waging an indiscriminatory war against all Chechen people. The Second Chechen War, launched by President Putin in 1999, aimed to dislodge the Islamist militants, who had seized power amidst Chechnya's political vacuum after the First War, with Putin portraying the conflict as a fight against terrorism. Instead of seeking an alternative strategy, which by that point was hard to find, the Russian military simply doubled down on previously successful methods. Putin ordered the complete destruction of the already devastated Grozny and several other Chechen towns in August 1999, as artillery, bombs, rockets, and guided missiles rained down for the next 2 months, before sending in a 100,000-strong invasion force in October. This left Grozny as the most destroyed city on Earth, according to the 2003 UN report. I thank you for watching my channel, and I hope you will comment, like, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Yulia, and you have been watching Rebels and Revolutions.